다음으로 ESG 경영을 실천하고 있습니다. 스마트 공장을 단계별로 고도화하여 자동화 제어, 데이터 기반 관리, 나아가 AI 예측 생산 시스템까지 구축할 계획입니다. 제품면에는 새송이버섯으로 안정적인 매출을 확보하는 동시에 서른버섯을 프리미엄 브랜드로 육성하고자 합니다. 포장 디자인과 브랜드 스토리를 강화해 소비자의 신뢰와 인지도를 높일 예정입니다.
Himchan has cultivated premium mushrooms by introducing smart farming skills and building a mass production system. We hope it can contribute to popularizing the improved taste and nutritional values of Korean mushrooms to the world.
drawing more fans from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% cent rate in April. Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences. Like the number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million using its locally developed Yuri rocket.
Arirang.
President Lee Jae-myung addressed the National Assembly this morning, calling for bipartisan support on next year's budget proposal. The speech, boycotted by the main opposition Conservative Party, outlined the objectives of a spending plan worth over 700 trillion Korean won, largely focused on artificial intelligence and research and development. South Korea's consumer inflation quickened in October, hitting a 15-month high. Prices for agricultural and fishery products jumped more than 3%, driving the overall increase in inflation. The United States is now pushing to impose new sanctions on ships accused of violating the UN Security Council resolutions. for illegally exporting North Korean coal and iron ore to China. But the move could be blocked if China and Russia use their veto powers at the Council. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin today with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung's speech this morning at the National Assembly on next year's budget proposal, where he called the transition to the AI era inevitable and promised to build an AI highway through greater investment. The budget for next year is set at a record high 728 trillion Korean won, or around $508 billion, up 8% from the previous year. Nearly $7 billion has been earmarked for AI-related projects, which is 3 times higher than this year's spending. The main opposition People Power Party boycotted today's speech to protest an arrest warrant against a party member related to last December's martial law declaration. The legal deadline for the parliamentary budget review is set for December 2nd. Meanwhile, South Korea's consumer inflation hit a 15-month high in October, rising 2.4% year-on-year, according to the Ministry of Data and Statistics. Inflation had dipped to 1.7% in August before rebounding to 2.1% in September. Prices for agricultural and fishery products jumped 3.1%, pushing overall inflation up by 0.25 percentage points. Processed food and petroleum products also added upward pressure on prices, rising 3.5% and 4.8% respectively. October's inflation is the highest since the 2.6% recorded in July of last year. In other news, the United States is pushing to impose new sanctions on ships suspected of violating the UN Security Council resolutions for illegally exporting North Korean coal and iron ore to China. However, with an unanimous decision needed by the permanent members of the UN Security Council, China and Russia are likely to veto such a move. Our Lee Seung-jae explains more.
The United States has moved to impose new sanctions on 7 ships accused of violating United Nations Security Council resolutions by smuggling North Korean coal and iron ore. According to Reuters, Washington will soon ask the UN North Korea Sanctions Committee to blacklist the vessels, which allegedly transported the banned minerals to China and other destinations. A senior U.S. official said North Korea earns between $200 and $400 million annually through such illegal exports, which are used to fund its nuclear and missile programs. The official also revealed that in May and June, a North Korean vessel named Shinpyeong-6 transferred coal to a Sierra Leone flagged ship called Fly Free on the high seas, later offloading at China's Weifang port. However, to enact the sanctions, all UN Security Council members must agree unanimously. But with China and Russia both having close diplomatic ties to Pyongyang and holding veto powers, the proposal faces steep obstacles. If adopted, the 7 ships could be barred from entering ports worldwide, and related shipping firms or individuals could face asset freezes and travel bans. Analysts say the move underscores Washington's effort to tighten financial pressure on the Kim Jong-un regime amid renewed concerns over North Korea's weapons development and deepening ties with Moscow and Beijing. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who is currently in Seoul, visited the joint security area near the border with his South Korean counterpart, An Kyu-baek. The 2 officials are scheduled to sit down for a meeting today, which is expected to cover plans to build a nuclear power submarine and the transfer of wartime operational control. Our Park Jun-an has the details.
The defense chiefs of South Korea and the United States visited the demilitarized zone along the North Korean border on Monday, marking the first joint visit by the defense chiefs of the 2 countries in 8 years. During the meeting, they received a briefing on current operations at Observation Post OLED, located just 25 meters from the military demarcation line, and later visited the conference facility at the JSA Inter-Korean Troops Village of Panmunjom. Minister An highlighted the DMZ's role and emphasized the significance of the visit.
새 The DMZ is the very front line, but it's also where the Panmunjom Declaration was signed and where the meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un took place. Because of this dual nature, it carries great symbolic significance.
This event set the stage for Tuesday's 57th Security Consultative Meeting, the highest level South Korea-U.S. defense consultative body for discussing and coordinating major military policies. Top agenda items that are likely to be discussed during the meeting include South Korea's pursuit of nuclear-powered submarines, wartime operational control transition, increase in defense spending, and U.S. forces' strategic flexibility. Discussions on nuclear-powered submarines will build upon last week's Gyeongju summit, where President Lee Jae-myung called for the production of nuclear propulsion vessels, and U.S. President Donald Trump gave his approval. Defense budget increases are also likely to be on the agenda as South Korea plans to raise spending to 3.5% of GDP by 2035, reportedly with U.S. support. Strategic flexibility for U.S. forces in Korea is expected to reaffirm the 2006 joint statement, balancing global roles while respecting Seoul's stance against regional involvement without public consent. At the military committee meeting held earlier, the Joint Chiefs reported meaningful progress on the transfer of operational control and agreed that deterrence should extend beyond the peninsula to regional stability. Today's meeting's outcomes are expected to reaffirm the two countries' partnership amid evolving North Korean threats and Indo-Pacific dynamics. 박준환, Arirang News.
On the economic front, following a trade deal between South Korea and the United States, Seoul's industry minister says the government's planned $200 billion investment in the United States will prioritize Korean companies looking to enter the U.S. market. He says the goal is to create new financing channels that strengthen industrial cooperation. Our Pyongyang reports.
Industry Minister Kim Jong-kwan says the country's $200 billion investment package for the U.S. will not be a simple handout, but a strategic fund designed to benefit Korean firms first. Speaking at a lecture for mid-sized company CEOs in Seoul on Monday, Kim explained that the funds will be overseen by two committees, one chaired by U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and another by himself, to ensure joint approval and transparency. He said the $200 billion investment will go to projects with commercial viability, or in other words, businesses capable of generating cash flow. The minister added that detailed guidelines on how companies can access the funds will soon be shared with business associations, urging firms not to miss out, saying if there's intent to expand into the U.S. market, this is an opportunity that should be explored. Kim also said the recently concluded Korea-U.S. tariff agreement helped ease pressure on the foreign exchange market and paved the way for strategic investment. He called it a new path, with companies in the past needing their own capital and financing. He added that formal documents summarizing the tariff deal, including an MOU and fact sheet, are in their final stages. At the event, the head of the Federation of Middle Market Enterprises of Korea thanked the minister for his efforts, recalling how U.S. President Donald Trump recently described Kim as a very tough negotiator, to which Kim replied, was a great honor. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
And Samsung Electronics has been ordered to pay $191.4 million in damages to Pictiva Displays for infringing two U.S. patents related to OLED technology. The ruling was handed down by a federal jury in Texas on Monday. Pictiva, based in Ireland and owned by Key Patent Innovations, argued that Samsung's Galaxy phones, TVs, and other devices use its patented methods for improving resolution, brightness, and power efficiency. The jury sided with Pictiva, whose managing director said the verdict validates the strength of its intellectual property. Samsung has not yet commented on the verdict. The case is among several recent large patent awards against Samsung in the same Texas court. And at the recent APEC economic leaders meeting held in Gyeongju, Korean culture drew the attention of people around the world on the diplomatic stage. It not only added glamour to the event, but also played a significant role in delivering the key messages of APEC. Our Ian-jin reports.
Ahead of the APEC meeting itself, there was a promotional video featuring notable figures who've contributed to the spreading of K-culture around the world. K-culture took on the role of drawing global attention even beforehand, but once the event officially started, it served as a medium to convey the core messages of APEC. The international popular film K-pop Demon Hunters was cited as an example during the closing speech of the CEO summit, as it demonstrated the value of connection, which was one of the key themes overall.
K-pop 데몬 헌터스에서는 K-pop 아이돌과 팬들이 강력한 연대로 어둠을 물리치는 혼문을 완성합니다. 위기와 불확실성의 시대일수록 하나 되는 연대와 협력이
Also standing at the podium was BTS leader RM, who compared K-pop to bibimbap in the context of emphasizing the strength that comes from diversity.
K-pop's success came from respecting diversity and embracing world cultures, but still holding on to Korea's unique identity.
A specially customized replica of the Shilla gold crown became a piece of diplomatic merchandise, intended to symbolize the spirit of the Shilla kingdom, which was the first to bring peace to the Korean peninsula. Meanwhile, the K-food dishes served at the meal tables of the leaders carried messages of friendship, harmony, and peace.
I always believe food is not just for eating to get full. Right? Food is art. Food is storytelling, food is connection.
The welcome dinner performance included an act by the APEC Honorary Ambassador G. Dragon. Going beyond mere entertainment, it was a stage of K-culture, delivering the deeper meaning of peace and a sustainable tomorrow. Ian-jin, Arirang News. This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Starting in Afghanistan, a 6.3 magnitude earthquake has killed at least 20 people and injured more than 640 others. The quake struck early Monday morning local time, shaking the northern part of the country and destroying hundreds of homes. Hospitals are treating dozens of people in critical condition, and rescuers say the number of casualties is still rising. Local authorities also report damage to a major historic mosque, though the structure remains standing. The Taliban government says emergency teams are working in affected areas, and the United Nations has begun delivering aid. However, rescue efforts are being slowed by blocked roads and poor communication in mountain villages. In the United States, as the government shutdown enters its second month, the Trump administration says it will provide reduced food aid to more than 42 million Americans. The decision follows a court order from federal judges in Massachusetts and Rhode Island directing the Department of Agriculture to use $5.25 billion in emergency funds to make partial payments to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as food stamps. The SNAP program, which supports low-income households, normally costs around $8 billion per month, but has been unfunded since October 1st. The reduced food stamp payments are expected to reach families later this week. In Rome, rescue teams have freed a worker trapped for nearly 12 hours after the partial collapse of a medieval tower undergoing restoration. The man was pulled from the rubble of the Torre dei Conti and taken to hospital late on Monday. The tower, built in the 13th century, first gave way late in the morning on Monday, injuring another worker before part of the structure collapsed again during the rescue. Authorities have cordoned off the area as engineers assess what caused the collapse. In Paris, fast fashion retailer Shein's first permanent store is set to open on Wednesday amid a fierce backlash.
The planned store inside the prestigious 19th century Bay department store building has sparked outrage and protest from workers and ethical brands, warning it undermines France's anti-fast fashion laws and Paris's progressive image. Several French companies, including Disneyland Paris, have withdrawn partnerships, while city officials called the move a provocation. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
We needed that warm coat for the commute this morning. It was much cooler in inland regions, and this cold means that frost is likely forming and water is freezing across the inland and mountainous areas. But highs will go up fast, jumping 10 to 20 degrees Celsius by the afternoon. And this huge recovery means we'll have a major daily temperature swing of around 15 degrees Celsius in most parts. So the cold will ease up starting this afternoon. Temperatures are recovering to seasonal averages or going up even higher tomorrow afternoon for a beautiful late autumn weather. And this afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 16 degrees Celsius. Daegu, Gyeongju, Gwangju will be getting up to 19 degrees under sunny skies in most parts of Korea. Large daily temperature swings will continue, so please ensure you dress in layers and take care of your health as the weather remains inconsistent this week. Meanwhile, Jeju Island will see frequent rainfall throughout the week and even into the weekend.
Now that's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.
That all the meals here serve as a foundation of its practices. The process of making a meal requires deep interconnectedness. And being thankful for the effort is the first step.